Hey, what's up, fellas? I'm Malicious Female Fan Steve Malicious here with the BlackBerry Z3. But before we get to that, thank you so much to all the new subscribers, up over 4,000 as of the taping of this video. If you've been loving the tech, both new and old, go ahead and give that subscribe button a tussle. It certainly means a lot to me. So unless you're an enthusiast, you may not have heard, or you're overseas, you've heard of it, obviously, but you may not have heard or seen the BlackBerry Z3, which was a project BlackBerry with Foxconn to get more BlackBerries in the hands of people around the world. And the reason why I'm doing this video today is to talk about a little bit about Foxconn and their pedigree with BlackBerry devices, because I get so many questions and comments every time I do a BlackBerry video. Hey, do you think Onward Mobility is still in business? Hey, do you think there's actually going to be a new BlackBerry? The answer to both is yes. I'm going to go into that at the end of the video. I did a little Columbo-like investigation. We're going to talk about my thoughts on why I think Onward Mobility is still in business and we're still going to get a BlackBerry. But I wanted to talk first about the Z3. So they went to Foxconn. They partnered with them to say, hey, listen, we need something that's kind of lower mid-tier that would work for Indonesian markets, Indian markets, African markets. They wanted to expand BB10 devices. And this is what they came up with. And let me tell you something. If they had released this with the performance the way it is, even not at the flagship level, instead of a Z10, maybe, just maybe, there had to be some other changes. Like you could forget the Q10 and move that out and just go right to the Q20. But if the lineup had been a Z3 with a couple spec changes we'll talk about in a moment, a Q20, and a BlackBerry Passport earlier, then we may, listen, you never know the future, but we might still be talking about BlackBerry as a hardware manufacturer and not just a software company. The Z3 had to be a budget device, a relatively budget device, so there were some corners cut. However, the guts of what they had to do in providing a BlackBerry experience, they nailed it. Let's look at the design real quick. First off, and you get the Z10, makes me want to throw up a little bit every time I look at it. I know people love the thing, but I was not a huge fan of the Z10 design. This is nice. This screams BlackBerry, besides the logo. You have the bezels, this nice piano black, nice and shiny. It works. Notification LED, essential for a BlackBerry. You flip it over. Even though it's not glass or rubberized material, it's plastic, but it's soft touch plastic. Nice. Good positive grip in the hand. It just works. It makes it feel like a BlackBerry. It has a good weight to it, even though it's a plastic frame and a plastic back. On the side, sleep wake button, volume up and down. The bottom, micro USB for charging. This side, nothing except the port door, which I like because you open this up because there's only 8 gigs of internal storage. You get micro SD expandable storage. You also get your SIM card slot, which I love. The Sony phones do that as well. I don't know why more manufacturers, I understand, put a gasket on it if you're worried about the IP68 dust and water resistance, but I love being able to swap out a SIM without having to worry about a SIM tool. On top, headphone jack. Very nice. But the reason why I knew we'd be okay, performance-wise, on this particular device was because it's running a Snapdragon 400 series processor. And it also is powering another one of my favorite devices, the Lumia 830. And while on Android, the Snapdragon 400 sucks wind like a pug that you've asked to go up a second flight of stairs, on the 830, with a lighter operating system like Windows Mobile, it's snappy. So I knew that even though BB10 is slightly more robust than Windows Mobile, we'd be okay. And sure enough, we are. No problems whatsoever. A great experience. Nice and smooth. Better than the Q10 and better than the Z10 in my estimation on that S4 Plus. Rivaling only my Q20 and my Passport was running. The Passport was running a Snapdragon 800. So this running the Snapdragon 400. It's really good performance. It's smooth. Listen, is it the snappiest thing in the world? But it doesn't have to be. I just love it. It's a great email machine. 5 inches. It's not an HD display. Okay, so that's where they cut a corner. Whereas the Z10 is running a 720p display. They cut corner on RAM as well. You got 1.5 gigs of RAM as opposed to 2 gigs on a Z10. But for my money, you up this to 2 gigs. You put an HD display on this, and this should have been the phone that was released, because the feel in the hand, the notification, it just gives you the BlackBerry 10 experience that you'd come to expect that you'd want. If you were choosing a device to represent BlackBerry, to get more people into the fold of BlackBerry without spending a ton of money, this is the one you'd want to put in their hand. You got to run it these days in the United States on a Mint Mobile, something like that. Someone who's still bothering with 3G devices, and I understand maybe it's not 3G for voice. Companies who are still activating them. So you get yourself a Mint Mobile and you'd be able to use it. Data worked fine. Everything was good on it. Texting was good. And texting was more than good, and I'll tell you why. Let's go to the browser. Next to a Windows mobile device, I understand we talk about BlackBerry with keyboards and physical keyboards, but the BlackBerry on-screen keyboards were some of the best keyboards that you were going to get. And on the Z10, you had a 4.5-inch display, which I thought was too small. It was cramped. When you got to the predictive text, the words above the letters, it just wasn't working for me. Just wasn't doing it. This, 5 inches, nice and spacious, plenty of room for your thumbs. A great, great, great keyboard. If you've never typed an on-screen keyboard on a BlackBerry or a Windows mobile device, do yourself a favor, pick one up. In fact, you pick this up, it's $30 on eBay. Now, part of that has to be because the bands are going out and whatever. Between BlackBerry and the problems with 3G, at least in American carriers, who knows what the likelihood of this working by the end of the year is going to be. But for that kind of money, $30, you go on eBay and you get yourself a decent BlackBerry example. And excellent at email, excellent at all those things, just missing that physical keyboard. But overall, this was a worthy entry. I wish it had been a mainstream entry. I wish it had been something that they'd brought stateside. I think it would have gotten people more comfortable with on-screen, all-screen BlackBerries to compete with iPhones earlier. You know, the Z30 was a nice device and powerful, and there's a better. It's what should have been first if you weren't going to release something like this. But unfortunately, we got the Z10, which I thought came up a little short. But overall, this is great, even still today. If you're using one in other parts of the world that are still supporting 2 and 3G, you're going to be very happy with this, and you could pick them up for next to nothing. But overall, a good BB10 experience. Performance, apps run. I was using Maps on here, was fine. Weather worked fine. Email, all the apps that you could get from BlackBerry World, everything, not an issue whatsoever. So let's talk about Onward Mobility for a second, because that's what everyone seems to ask about. I went on, okay, this might be a little stalkerish, I don't know, whatever it is, but everybody who's listed for the company, I went on LinkedIn and made sure that they were still employed. Now, while it's odd that a lot of the people seem to have other employment, other jobs that they're running concurrently with their Onward Mobility employment, none of them, and there was like 8 or 10 of them, have listed their Onward Mobility employment as having ended at any point. They're all open-ended. So nobody is claiming that they've left or they've moved on to other projects. They may have added other projects, and they may have other projects that they were already started that they're still doing, which I guess you could do both at the same time. I don't know what the workload is. I don't know how that quite works. But it is something that nobody said, hey, listen, I stopped working. There's no flood of people that said, hey, we stopped working at Onward Mobility at X date, at least through their LinkedIn profile. So far, so good. They do work out of like some sort of those co-work spaces or something like that in Texas, which I thought was a little odd. But if you're outsourcing, if you're only designing the thing or helping design the thing, and you're outsourcing it to Foxconn for the manufacturing, and BlackBerry's handling the software, what do you really need to do? You're kind of marketing, design, feature set, global business people, handling distribution. That's kind of your job. So I don't really know what needs to go into that or what sort of facilities you need for that. But it seems like Foxconn and BlackBerry would be doing the heavy lifting as far as building stuff from the ground up. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. And listen, and the other thing is look around at the universe. The last thing you want is to have a phone, announce it, and either have to delay it, which would be bad enough, or you release it and it's like a PS5 and you can't get the thing. Think about that. Sony, Xbox, Microsoft, some of the biggest corporations in the world are having trouble getting product shipped out and making enough of them to market. So think about a smaller company that's bringing a brand back to livelihood that's not exactly going to be shipping major numbers. We're not talking about millions of units that they're going to be shipping for BlackBerry. So they're going to be lower on the food chain as far as chips are concerned. When you're filling orders for 10,000 as opposed to a million, which customer are you going to satisfy first? Samsung comes to you and says, hey, I need 1 million chips right now. Give them to me. All right? The Fold 3's coming out. Give me 1 million chips. And you got Onward Mobility coming to them. Excuse me, sir, over in the corner. Yeah, we'd like 10,000. They're going to laugh at you. They're not going to do that. They're going to fill Samsung's order first. So if they're waiting for better market conditions, if they're waiting for a better global situation as far as chips are concerned to announce a phone or release a phone, I'm okay with that as long as we get one. But in the meantime, I'm going to be patient. I'm going to enjoy the Unihertz Titan Pocket when it comes in September. And hopefully we'll hear something one way or another by then. If you've made it this far, like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Until next time, have that Steve-licious day.